Good morning, everyone. This is Lynissa with Makers Avenue. Today I'm going to do kind of like a process painting video. I wouldn't say it's a tutorial that much, but I'm working on developing my daily creative practice, trying to consistently work in my sketchbook and seeing what works for me, seeing what processes work for me. So I'm just going to kind of go over the supplies that you're going to need if you want to follow along. Now, you don't have to stick with these supplies. Again, this is just for me to practice being loose in my sketchbook, but I'm just kind of showing you the supplies that I'm using. First off, this is a Fabriano Eco. I kind of covered up the information with all these stickers, but it's a Fabriano, I think it's called Eco Aqua sketchbook. It's a sketchbook, meaning it's meant for like drawings. The paper is, hold on, let me see this. The paper is like not thick. It's meant for sketching, so it's not meant for watercolors. So yeah, this is the EcoQua Fabriano EcoQua ecological paper. It's a really, so it's not, it's kind of a it's not a heavy paper, and like I said, it's meant for like drawing, ink supplies. However, I have been using it, putting watercolors in here. I do like how the watercolors are. I like the simple saddle stitch, like it's stapled. It's a very I get it from the art stores. They're like around $4 to $5, so this is very affordable. And I like it. I like the way it takes on watercolors. Do the watercolors sometimes bleed through? Yes, but I don't mind it so much. It helps me to free up. And I like this size because you can see it's not a lot of pages, so it's not overwhelming to try to fill up. Okay, so initially when I got this, I said, hey, I'm going to just use this sketchbook for ink drawings, for for ink graphic line drawings. Of course, I didn't stick to that very long. I started adding in color very quickly. Like this was done with gouache paint. I never did finish it. I did add some ink to it, and so I eventually started adding paint to it. Okay, like I said, I'm working on developing my daily creative practice, and I'm trying to get loose with my work. I like looking at people's work that are realistic and filled with a lot of realism. However, I know for me personally, that doesn't work. I don't want to say it's my attention span, but that could be part of it. I don't have the patience to work with too much realism. I do like a little bit of it, and I'll talk about that more when I do videos on my style. I do like some realism. I just can't do like a whole piece that's fully realistic. I kind of get bored when I'm working with it. Also, sometimes I start falling asleep while I'm working on it. So I like things that are more loose. I like realism that looks unfinished or that's mixed up with a lot of different media elements. And so that's what I'm trying to do today. So these are some old pictures. And again, I'm trying to play with what I find works for me, what process I find works for me. Now this is, I love this image with these, I'm just practicing florals because I find florals become, easy for me. And then I do want to paint florals, even though that's not the only thing that I want to paint. But I like this sort of thing. I did the ink drawing first, and then I went back in with the watercolor. The only problem with this is that even though it's pretty, I like it, it's too tight. It was too tight for me. So I realized I don't care as much I like doing ink drawings, but I don't really care as much trying to go back on top with watercolors and then coloring it in like a coloring book. It wasn't working out that much. As you can see, I didn't finish it, and to me, it just didn't have that excitement that I needed, even though it's still pretty. And I still like these flowers. Here, I did watercolors just by themselves, or at least I started to. I didn't finish it. And I didn't start off with any drawing. And then I went back in with some pencils. For me, I can't have the watercolors just by themselves because I still want the structure and some kind of definition. So I'm trying to come up with some happy mediums in between. So these are just some practice pages. This is just some abstract. Here I'm just practicing with different materials to see what type of materials that I like to use. And I'll, do more videos where I'm just practicing with different materials to kind of loosen up. I really love these brush pens, and that's one of the things that you're gonna see me use today. So I love these type of drawings. They're quick, they're loose, they're very abstract. This is what I love, but I also like color, so I got to figure out. So I was like, okay, how can I add color to this? So this was done. These two pages are done with the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, which is this. You can get varied lines. Okay, when you're drawing, you want to get like a variety of different types of lines. So you want to be able to go from thin to thick to whatever. So this is one of my favorite ink pens, and I don't know why, it's easier for me to sketch when I know I can't erase something. So I don't sketch as much with pen. Sometimes I just go straight in with some kind of pen instead of using pencil. Sometimes I just go in with a material or tool that I know I can't erase, because for some reason, I can't explain it. The idea of not being able to erase something kind of frees me up. So it's like, I know with that, it's like any mistake I make, it's just going to be, and I just got to let it go. So I often like to use, when I'm sketching, and I'm not saying I don't draw with pencil at all, but when I'm sketching, I often like to use things that I can't really erase with. So I like the Pentel Pocket Brush. You can get these at any art store. The other type of brush that you're going to see me use today is this Kuretake brush pen. There's another name for it as well, because Kuretake has a lot of different brush pens. I don't know what this, I know this is the fine line brush pen, but I don't know what they actually call it. But as you can see, this brush is very, very fine. Okay, so, but it still gives you, it still gives you great line quality. So you can go very fine and still, so you can get very fine lines, but you can vary it. So I really love this pen. I call this my mascara eyeliner brush pen, because it does look a lot like, for those of you who wear makeup, it does look a lot like an eyeliner pen. So I find myself that it's easier for me to draw with this pen to get a variety of lines. It helps me to loosen up. Now you got to find what works for you. So these two brush pens work for me. They may not work for you. You got, but you could. I would try them. So I get these at the art supply store. I'm pretty sure you can look for it online. So that's what I'm going to draw with. This is a previous exercise. So I started doing these doodles. I did this side first. This was just practicing. Excuse me. Like I said, sometimes when I'm on the phone or talking or listening to someone else, I just start doodling different flowers. And like I said, this is nice by itself. Sometimes I want to add color. To do this, you can see this is a lot different from this. Okay, so this is more free. It's a lot more loose. So what I did here is I started with the watercolor first, okay? And I just took my brushes. So that's the other thing that you'll need. You can use a brush of your choice for this exercise. I pretty much stuck with this dagger brush, or you can use a regular round paintbrush. That's up to you. Also, I use these watercolor pencils. Now these are like $3 to $4 at the art supply store. You don't have to use one that's you don't have to, there are a lot cheaper ones, but I really like these from these Museum Aquarelle from Caran d'Ache. Okay, I like this color. The reason why I like these watercolor pencils is because if let's say you're just trying to make up a composite, and this quickly helps me to go into loosely, like, okay, I need a circle here, I want a flower here, and then that way when I start adding watercolor to it, it blends in, so you don't see the line as much. So this is a great pencil to use, watercolor, but of course you can just use plain old you can use a regular pencil if you just want to start like sketching, or you can go straight to watercolor. The next thing that I'm using is watercolor palette. So like I said, I start with the base of watercolor. This palette is pretty new. I just got it this weekend. This is from Christy Painter. This is her Making Art for Joy's Sake palette. So I just got these. I love the colors in it. Been using it. As you can see, it's kind of dirty because I've been using it. And this is one of my older palettes that I kind of curated. So this is just used to be one of those Prima marketing tins, and then I took the colors that were in here and created my own palette, which I'm going to do another video talking about how you can create your own kind of palette. So this is one of my favorite ones that I love, using a lot of the colors I love. I have different ones, but these are the two palettes that I'm using in here. So like I said, you can get your own palette. You can use the cheap watercolor set. You don't really need something fancy. You can use those cheap watercolor sets from Michaels. I have one of those too. Whatever watercolors you have on hand, you can, you don't even have to use watercolors. Frankly, you can do this with markers. You just probably won't be able to wet it down as well, as good. Okay, and then this is also optional, but I did use these Stabilio like brush pen markers. And you can go back in, and again, I like things that are loose, but I do like adding structure to it later. So I kind of I like to start off very loose and chaotic, if you will, and then going back in to add details. So let's say if you want some color, you just don't want to work with black and white, you can go back in and add color and detail with like with a marker. Like I said, you don't have to use this type. Any type of marker will work. I just like these. I like these colors. Again, I think I got them from the art store. You can get them online, but these are the brush markers. So yes, I just wanted to show you the supplies that I'm planning on using, and then how I'm working, this is what you'll see that I make on today's video. So just follow along if you would like. If you have any questions, leave them in the questions comments. And then I'm going to continue to make some more videos like this. You'll be using different materials, but if you like, or if you want to see more content, make sure you subscribe so you can be notified. Thanks for joining me, and I'm about to start the video. Bye. Okay, here we go to voiceover mode. I'm just going to get started with my daily practice sketch. Again, if you're following along with this, my advice is to remain very, very loose. And figure out what process works for you. Like I said, I kind of prefer, I like the look of going in with watercolors first and then going back in with the ink drawing. That way to kind of stay really loose with this. Don't take too much time. So I'm going to use these reference images from Victoria. What's it called? Victoria Lady Magazine. This is one of my favorite magazines. I love all the dainty features. But even though I'm using this magazine picture as a reference, I'm using it very, very loosely. So as you can see, I'm going in with the watercolor and pencil and just making a real quick sketch. The reason why I'm using the watercolor pencil again is because when I go over watercolors, it's gonna melt the lines and blend it in a little bit more. Here I am just drawing another flower, and again, it's very loose, very quick. I didn't really spend that much time on drawing it. Now I'm just going to go through, see if I can find different types of flowers that I can add. So this is a good way if you're worried about copying people's images, which that's not really a big worry for me. But if you're worried about that, you just take bits and pieces off of reference images and kind of use it to compose your own. So as you can see, this image, I'm not trying to make it look like the exact one. I'm just taking different floral shapes and kind of getting inspirations. Some of it's not even coming from the image itself. I'm just kind of being inspired and just kind of free flowing, just drawing. So I'm looking for different shapes that I want to include. I think I was looking at the leaves on this one, and I was just looking at particular leaves. So as you can see, it looks nothing like the original image because I took references from different photos, and then part of it just came from my imagination. So I think that's all that I'm going to do with this page. So now, since I have, I added a few like berry kind of shapes. Now I'm going to go on the other side just to kind of do this page as well. Now I'm drawing the vase. As you can see, the vase it has a totally different shape, and I'm just kind of being inspired and loose with it. I'm trying to draw these leaf-like shapes and circles that could either be flowers or they could be berries. But again, you're just quickly sketching in. The point is not to get an exact likeness. It's just to, again, loosen up, practice, and play with your materials to see what works for you. So now I'm going to bring in two of my watercolor palettes. You don't have to use this many colors. You can use something cheap. I'm just spraying them with water, and I'm going to go in with my dagger brush. Okay, now you can just use any round brush. I'm not going to even mix out colors. I'm just dipping in different colors randomly, not thinking too much about it. I'm just laying like a base layer of colors and using the sketch lines as a suggestion. As you can see, I'm just going on top. I'm not really trying to stay in the lines or color it in exactly. Keep this process very quick. your brush, hold it. You want to make it should feel like your brush is dancing across the page. That's the best way I can describe it. So be very free, very quick. I don't mind mixing the colors in the paint wells, and they can get dirty. It's okay. It's watercolor, so you can wash it out. You could use the reference images for colors idea, but I'm just going in with different colors that I like to use that kind of attract me. And again, I'm not looking at the images to figure out the colors. I'm just kind of using, where I would imagine the light to be hitting. But since this is not realistic painting, it's more like a sketch doodle, even that doesn't matter as much. So the flowers may not have all the same light source. It's okay if they don't. This is just practice. This is just fun. So I'm going back in, kind of establishing the leaves. And you don't want to get too much water on your brush with this type of paper, unless you have like a watercolor paper. But with this being a sketchbook, you don't want too much water. I know this sketchbook in particularly, it will kind of bleed through if I have too much water. So there's a little bit, but there's not a whole bunch. So some areas I didn't actually draw the leaves. I'm just kind of drawing them now with my dagger brush. I kind of like the different types of lines and shapes that I could create with this dagger brush. And I'm kind of loading up different couple of colors at one time. So here I'm working with smalt, which is this beautiful like blue ultramarine color, and putting a little brown on it as well to darken it up. In another video, I'll probably talk about a little bit more about some of the colors that I use in these watercolor palettes, but that'll be come up on a later date. So yeah, I'm just going back in, trying to add a little bit of contrast, and pretty soon I'll be moving on to the next one. So here I'm just adding some green. I know that in the original picture there was a lot of leaves, so I'm just going to add leaf-like dabs. They're not even in the shapes of leaves. This is more like a suggestion. And here's the great thing with painting abstract or loose. Your brain is going to input all the other information. So even if you're not exactly painting the exact shape, if you didn't sketch it in, if you're not coloring in the lines, even if it's not realistic, your brain is going to add in all the other information. So it's going to end up looking like florals or leaves or plants. And so just dabbing paint onto the page helps a lot. You're just doing these small leaf-like shapes. As you can see, they're not very defined. I'm just angling my brush in different ways. Some of the shapes I'm not too crazy about, but I'm just going pretty quickly. But after a while, it all starts to blend together, and your brain starts to tell you, hey, this is a bouquet of flowers or a bouquet of berries. Now I'm adding the flower berry-like shapes. I never could decide if I wanted to do berries or if I wanted, because in the original picture it was like berries. I couldn't tell if I wanted to do berries or flowers, but like I said, my brain kind of just made it up for me. So some of them are berries, some of them are flowers. It's kind of up to you. Again, I'm just keeping it real fast. This is not supposed to be over complicated. Don't overthink it. Just have fun. Just play with the colors. Let your brush dance across the page. So now I'm going in with some wisteria paint and kind of doing the fabric that was from the original image. Of course, this is a see-through vase, but I did want to add a little color to it. But I'm not going to add too much because I'm supposed to be able to see through it. I'm taking some of that smalt color along with this silver color. You can't really see it from this angle. And then now I'm just putting some blobs in that kind of represent the fabric and kind of makes the vase look transparent. So I'm adding a little, going back in with some darker browns and greens just to give it a little bit more contrast. I feel like contrast really is the key to give it that definition and volume. Now this is optional. This is up to you. Sometimes you may not want to, sometimes I feel like black is too strong and you may want to add definition with light colors. So one thing you can do, one thing I'm doing here is taking my Stabilo brush markers, brush tip markers, and I'm just trying to go in and further defining some of those leaf shapes. I feel this looks better instead of doing everything in black ink. I will eventually come back in with the black ink, but I'm just defining some of those shapes with a marker, going back in and defining the stems and some of the leaves in different, different greenery colors. Again, this is optional. This is up to you. You don't have to use this brand of markers. You can use colored pencils, oil pastels, really whatever material you have around. I just like using these. These are like the things that I have on my desk and the colors that I like to use, and it kind of goes with it. Now I'm doing a little definition in these flower shape. Again, this is like a subtle way of providing definition. So I'm doing the same on here. And with watercolors, they usually lighten up very fast. So markers or using a different medium brings back some of that contrast and colors that the watercolors, gets lost when the watercolor starts to dry. Now I'm finally going in with my black Kuretake fine line brush pen. Like I said, this is one of my favorite brush pens, and again, I'm moving very quickly. This video is kind of sped up, but even in real time, this drawing is actually pretty fast. Don't think too much about it. This is what I would consider more to be a gestural drawing, meaning you really let your wrist move, be loose kind of in your wrist, and just let your brush move around the page. I do not, if you pay attention, if you kind of zoom in, notice I don't connect all my lines. I want the lines to kind of be broken, and I don't go over the watercolors exactly. So it's kind of like it has this loose look to where it looks like it's not coloring into the lines. So the watercolors is kind of a guide, but it's a loose interpretation. So again, I don't really connect the lines. I kind of like the look of broken lines. And I love this brush because it gives you a lot of line versatility, a lot of line variety. That's what makes your pictures very interesting, when your compositions have different types of light. You want different widths of lines. Like you want a really thin line, really fat line. So I like this brush because you can get that variety in one brush without really overthinking it. Most brush pens, you're able to have some sort of variety in your brush strokes. So I'm just defining the areas of this flower. Notice I'm not really thinking too much about it. Some of the petals make sense, some of them don't. Some of them areas I was kind of really handed. Some of the areas are just right. Now I'm going back in to define like this fabric and this vase, and again I'm not connecting those lines. Your brain is going to add the information there. I don't want to connect it. It also makes the picture more airy, more ethereal. It doesn't feel as heavy when you break up some of those lines. So here I'm just going in and adding more definition and a little bit more contrast, defining some of those floral shapes that weren't defined before, and actually creating the flower shapes. So you can use reference pictures, or you could just kind of scribble around. A lot of my drawings is just me scribbling. And it's a fun way to practice. I feel like I'm not saying you should not practice like realism. I did go to school. I did major in art. So, and I did, do still lives, had to do still life drawing. So that does help you get better. But you want to balance. I feel like you want to balance. So being able to draw from real life does help you. But then take what you do practice and then just loosen up. So that is the end of today's process video / tutorial. I hope that this helps you to loosen up in your daily sketchbook and, help you to actually enjoy the process of sketching. If you like this video, please leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe. And I'm planning on bringing more kind of these daily sketchbook creative daily practices to my channel. So I hope you have enjoyed and have a nice day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.